Hello and welcome to Her Success Tribe. I'm Rebecca Lockwood, multi-passionate entrepreneur and mindset and business strategist. I'm so happy to see you here and hope that you find as much value in these interviews as I do. We speak to women all over the world to understand how they run a successful business with purpose and take away the lessons and tips for you to go away with and implement straight into your business and life with ease. Enjoy. Welcome, Jessica Fearnley, to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. I keep saying podcast, but it's not just for the podcast. We're going to be on YouTube, we're going to be on the blog, and we're also going to be providing this on our social media as well. So welcome to Her Success Tribe.
Thank you.
So Jessica is a business coach for female entrepreneurs balancing businesses and babies. But I'm not going to try and explain what you do. I'm going to let you take over and explain what you do and how you work with your clients.
Oh, thank you, Rebecca. So yeah, I've got sort of three things that I do with my clients. Firstly, I help them win back more of their time. Secondly, I help them get the profits that they need from their business, so make more money from the work that they're doing. And thirdly, I help them get better clients. So no more nightmare clients, no more working with people who are just the wrong fit, finding those people who are your dream client and where it just all falls into place.
Amazing. So you help people win back time. You help people work with the clients that they want to work with. So no more nightmare clients. And what was the other thing you said, sorry?
It was making more money. So getting those profit levels where they should be. Because I think there's far too many entrepreneurs who they have a really kind of impressive shop front, but actually behind the scenes, they're not happy and they're not earning the money that they deserve from the work that they're doing. So
Yes.
We look at ways to actually get that business working and profitable.
That's so true. So true. Okay, so I'm making notes as we go along. So if you hear me scribbling away or looking down, that's why, because we're going to put this together in a blog afterwards to provide our listeners with some really useful tips and let them kind of find your downloadable products, which we'll speak about at the end. So how did it all begin for you? Like, where did it all start?
So I set up my business in 2015. I had my first baby in 2014, and I hadn't really planned to start up a business at all. I was fairly sure, I think, that it wasn't the right thing to return to the job that I'd been doing before. It was a very fast-paced, busy job that involved commuting, and just gradually more things stacked up that made me feel like, actually, I don't really think I'm going to do this. What I thought I would do would just be a stay-at-home mum who really enjoyed kind of arts and crafts and baking, but turns out when you have a boy, they don't always want to do those things with you. And actually my first son, I've got two sons who are currently 3.5 and the baby is 9 months. They're both completely gorgeous, but my first boy, he's quite an independent little chap, and actually if I say, should we do colouring in, he's more likely to throw the crayons on the floor and be like, look mummy, bang, than he is to actually want to do stuff like that at the moment. And that's just how he is. So I think I found myself kind of on maternity leave just with this feeling of like, I'm almost killing time and I don't really know who I am at the moment, because everything about me was kind of my job, I guess. And suddenly I didn't have that anymore. And I just had this baby who needed me all the time. And I was like, gosh, like, I'm really fat now as well. Like, I don't fit into any of my old clothes. I thought that I'd go straight back to being a size 10 the day after my son was born, but I had fat arms and I was like, I can't put any of my tops on, like, let alone my stomach, like my arms won't go into any of my clothes. So I remember having that feeling of just looking in my wardrobe and being like, I just don't know where I've gone. Like, I don't feel like I recognize myself anymore. And so gradually from there, just the idea to do what I've been doing in my career, basically, which I've been running a startup firm for 4 years, and really doing the kind of nuts and bolts under the bonnet of that business and helping it grow. It was very exciting and I enjoyed it a lot, but I think actually sometimes it was too exciting and I wanted something which was a bit more scalable and a bit more easy to fit in around family responsibilities. So yeah, started taking on a few clients when I was still on maternity leave just to see what would happen, and then just realised that I loved it. And then it all kind of grew from there. I started off with an offline business, but then I discovered, I think it must have been sort of September 2015, I discovered the possibilities of an online business and got really excited. And a lot of hard work, and several years later, and here I am. So hooray.
Well, that's exciting and such an exciting journey. And I can completely relate to, after you've had your child, wondering what the hell's going on, because I was so driven and work focused before I had Eva, and she's 2.5. And then after I had her, I was like, yeah, I'll still be like that. It'll be fine. But it shifts completely, doesn't it? And then you're right, you've got this little baby to look after. And sometimes it's just a bit overwhelming, understanding what to do, what direction to go in. And again, my business that I had at that time was, it was very it was scalable, but it took a lot of my time. And so I had to completely revisit my whole model as well. So yeah, I completely understand that. So what happened then? So you started taking on clients when is your first Toby?
So my first is Tom and my second is Toby. We thought we were going to confuse the names all the time anyway, so we may as well go for ones that are quite similar sounding.
Yeah, we're still trying to decide on our second name. I'm like, oh, is that too close? But I think we're okay. So what happened then? So you had your first baby, you kind of had this realization, you set up this business. What happened then?
So as soon as I set up my business, when you've had one child and you think if you can, you'd like to have another at some point, I just had this sort of time bomb, it felt like, in the background ticking away, being like, what am I actually going to do? Because I need this business to be self-sufficient enough, or I need to be in a position where I can just stop work for a year. And gradually over time, just this picture came together. I think probably networking online with a lot of American entrepreneurs who they don't have paid maternity leave in the way that we do over here. Because in the UK, I think it's very unusual to say to people, I'm not going to take maternity leave, but actually that is what I started to do. And I thought, what if instead of stopping my business, I just scale it down a bit and make it a bit more manageable, because then I don't have to feel like I'm using maternity leave to take a break from being myself. And it just all came together from there, really. It was a difficult process. And at the time I just thought, am I insane? Because who goes back to work 3 weeks after they've had a baby? Like, what? But actually I didn't do it to kind of prove a point or to be like, look at me, I'm so awesome. I think I did 2 hours my first day back when Toby was 3 weeks old. And actually I just really loved it. And I was like, yeah, I haven't had any sleep, and yeah, I'm tired, and I got stitches and all kinds of stuff. But actually I just felt like myself, and my brain was still there and it's still working. And I was just like, hooray, this is awesome. So I've very much taken the approach of, this is my business and I'm going to do what I want with it. Whereas when I was first in that phase of thinking, how am I going to prepare for a second baby if I have one? I thought, okay, well, I'll just earn double the first year. And then I've got money set aside for that second year when I want to go on maternity leave. But I think when you're starting an online business, earning single is hard enough, let alone earning double. So I just found very quickly that put a phenomenal amount of pressure on me. And if anyone's kind of watching this or listening to this and thinking, but when are you ready to sort of take that plunge and try and have a second baby if you're an entrepreneur? And like, I wasn't ready. No. I just made it all up on the fly as I was going. And actually it worked amazingly well. So that would be my big kind of takeaway from that. It's like, don't expect to feel ready. It's like, when are you ready to have your first baby? You never really feel 100% like, gosh, it's a big responsibility. Am I ready to take that on? Well, no, you're not. You learn as you go. So I think a lot of those skills that I learned the first time around, having my first baby, I was then able to sort of apply to my business the second time around when I was pregnant again.
Yeah, that's so true. And being due to have my second baby in 6 weeks' time at the time of this recording.
So exciting.
I completely understand what you mean by, so when you say went back to work, you obviously mean in your own business, don't you?
Yeah.
And people keep saying to me, well, when are you going to slow down? When are you going to take time off? And I'm like, but what would I do if I took time? Like, I don't, like, my life already looks exactly how I want it to look. I do everything that I want to do. I work when I want to work. I do things that I love doing. It doesn't feel hard. I put me first anyway. I put self-care first anyway. So I don't know what else I would do. I joked with someone that I would just have to sit in front of the TV and watch TV, and I never watch TV. Like, I might watch one film a month, or sit in front of it for like 10 minutes just before my daughter goes to bed, just to have a cuddle with her. But I was like, even just the thought of that just makes me feel heavy. Like, what would I do?
And that's the thing. I think we have this kind of conditioned idea, don't we, that like, you know, even in a corporate job, you work until you go on maternity leave, and then you have your baby, then you have a year having coffee with your friends with all your massive pushchairs in Costa or whatever.
Yeah,
and
it just
then
doesn't happen though, does it?
well, exactly. And I think I just thought, do you know what? I don't want to take a break from normal life. And you do have to be careful with it as well, because if you're an entrepreneur and you're used to working very hard, it can be hard to stop. Because I think often when we have those moments of like, oh, I've got a bit of time, what shall I do? It's easier to just do more work sometimes than it is to actually think, well, I'd like to do exercise, or I'd like to see friends, or I'd like to do this hobby, or anything like that. But I think we have to be honest with ourselves. I didn't go back to work 3 weeks after Toby was born so I could brag about it afterwards. And sometimes I look back on last year when he was born and I just think, my goodness, what was I thinking? But actually that's what felt right to me. And that's what my energy levels at the time allowed me to do. And so I think, like with anything in your business, you've got to stop taking your cues from the world outside, and you've got to start internally making those decisions yourself. What's right for you? Doesn't matter what people think. Doesn't matter if people think it's too soon or it's not soon enough. You don't need permission. So the key thing is make a choice that feels right for you.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And I was just thinking when you were saying that about what kind of work I actually do. So I'm thinking of things like writing and creating video and things that are really creative, because I've designed my business to be that way purposefully. Yeah. So I suppose in one sense it is just doing stuff that I love doing anyway.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing.
It could be different for everyone.
Well, yeah, they're things that you enjoy and they're energizing for you. And it can be hard, can't it, to tell if we're working for the right reasons. But I think sometimes, I don't know about you, I enjoy my business and I love doing it. So yeah, there's times when I think, oh, I've just had enough. But there's just as many times where I think, I love this, isn't it? Like I love being able to learn and develop and grow all the time and just take on things that I'm interested in and say, why don't we try that and see if it works? So yeah. I'm never going to stop being that curious person. So I may as well channel it into something that is already there.
Completely. Okay, so I'm conscious now that we're talking about how much we love our businesses and how amazing they are, and we might have someone listening who doesn't feel that way. So what are the steps, what are the things that you'd give someone, what advice would you give someone who's in a space where they're thinking, well, them two are just bitches?
Yeah. And yeah, to be honest, I've had that experience of being very early on in my business and listening to stuff and people go, oh, it's so amazing, I'm so good at everything that I do, and it's like, shut up.
Yeah,
because
completely.
When you're struggling, it can be really hard. And you know, none of what we're saying, and I'm sure you feel the same, Rebecca, I have days where I just think, I'm going to quit this business because I am done. And then you go to bed, you get up the next morning, just relax a bit, and you think, actually, I was being a bit melodramatic yesterday, it's all fine. So you know, there are ups and downs, aren't there? But I think definitely if you're listening to this and you're in that space where you just think, I'm really not enjoying this, it's really hard, it's not working, and this is a lot of the work that I do with my clients, it's really about tapping into that reason for doing it that you have. Because so often you can set up a business that you're really passionate about, but actually it's not a viable business. It's never going to be something that makes money. And so I think that's where people can fall down quite early on, because they love doing what they're doing, but like it's just not actually meeting a need out there in the world, so they're not making sales. But then I think on the other side, you can have someone who's really spotted a gap in the market, who's got a service-based business or even a product-based business, but people definitely need what they have to offer, but actually it's not really ticking their boxes, and they just think, well, I'm doing all this work and yeah, you know, it's bringing in money, but like I just don't really enjoy it. And I guess the tricky thing as an entrepreneur is always balancing those two things. So you're doing something that you really can believe in and that you feel strongly about, but at the same time it's got to work financially, it's got to bring in money to the business, it's got to make profit, otherwise it's just an expensive hobby, isn't it? So that would be my advice on where to start with that. Just really evaluate kind of what you're doing at the moment. Why is it working? Why isn't it working? How can you make it better? For some people, that might be a point at which they just realize that actually they're an entrepreneur, but they're not in the right business yet. But I think often people are already in the business that they love, but they've fallen out of love with it because it's just demanding too much from them. It's making them very tired. It's not giving them the reward that they should have, whether that's because, you know, they're just working too much, they're not getting paid enough. They're working, you know, like we were saying before, with these nightmare clients who just, there are clients out there, aren't there, who just suck the life out of you. And when you've been in business a while, you get better at spotting them coming and putting boundaries in place to protect yourself. But it's working out, like, why is it not working at the moment? What is the big issue? What is the thing that is missing in your business?
Yeah, I love that. So going on to then nightmare clients. So what advice would you give to someone who is just taking anyone and everyone at the moment?
Well, it's this whole thing about niching, isn't it? Because there's a lot of talk about kind of finding your ideal client. And I think if you're in a stage where you're scared to niche, which is really understandable, because if you cut down the number of people you're willing to work with, then doesn't that just reduce your market straight away? So it can make it seem like you're then looking for the needle in the haystack. But actually, the weird paradox with it all is that the more you are specific in who you're willing to work with, who you're looking for, the more you find those people and the less you work with the people who are wrong. And I don't know if you found this early on in your business, Rebecca, but certainly I said yes to a few people early on who I probably should have said no to. And nothing is ever wasted, is it? Because they're still paying clients. You learn such a lot by working with people who really make you earn every penny that they spend working with you. But actually, that's the kind of work which doesn't fulfill you. And so it's worth, really thinking about, who is your ideal client? Who is the person who, you love to work with? And I think there can be a lot of skepticism around ideal client stuff. And I think often it's done in a really bad way. So it's not about thinking, in an ideal, perfect, imaginary world, who do I want to work with? Who is my dream client who doesn't exist? Because if that person doesn't exist, then it does make it really tricky to actually find them. So I always think, look back at your own business, think, who are the people who I've worked with, where it has just ticked all of my boxes, where I'd say they are my favorite client, and then just really get specific about everything that is, unique to that person. Because once you do that, you can start to engineer your marketing so that you attract that person. And it's been really interesting. I've been doing that probably in my business for about 2.5 years. And for the last 12 months, everyone who's come into my programs has been my ideal client. And it was only recently that I realized that. And I was like, this is why I like my work at the moment, because actually everyone is there for the right reasons. Like, so for me in my business, readiness to do the work is the big thing. So I cannot work with someone, I cannot get results for someone if they're not ready to put the time in. And I think early on in my business, I was taking on people and saying yes, who were like, oh, just fix my business. Here's the money, just fix it. But I need them to be kind of complicit in the process. So if they're not on board, then we're not going to get results, and then everyone is frustrated. So it was really important for me to engineer my sales funnel so that actually readiness was the biggest kind of factor in people coming forward to work with me. And just, being quite scientific about it. So you do the creative stuff and you map out your ideal client avatar, but also then getting your kind of engineering specs on and being like, right, how do we put hurdles in place so that the wrong people are sent away and the right people come forward? And it's a massive process, but actually it's brilliant when it starts to work. And if you can get it right, and if you can keep tweaking, keep evaluating, it does all spring into life eventually.
Yeah, that's so true. And readiness completely. Yeah, because there is nothing worse than trying to push someone into doing something when they're just not going to take the action.
Yeah, and that's when you get people who go, oh, I've got these problems. Can you tell me how to fix them? And you go, okay, could you try that? Could you try that? And then they either don't turn up to the next meeting, or they do and they haven't done any of the work. And it's just because actually they're not ready. So they really need to be, don't they?
And then they blame you, and then it comes out in testimonial, and they don't recommend
in a way
you.
They're right to blame you, because you shouldn't have taken them on in the first place, because they weren't right for you. So, but that is a lesson that is learned over time, isn't it? And I think if you have a reflective attitude to the coaching work that you do, then you're always able to kind of say, oh yeah, I see now actually that was the thing that was wrong, and put it into practice so that next time round, if someone very similar to that approaches you again, you'll do a different thing. I think that just that ability to be reflective and to think, why hasn't this worked and how can we put it right? There's an awful lot of trial and error involved in being an entrepreneur, isn't there? I don't know if you found that, Rebecca.
Oh yeah, ongoing. It's always a learning progress, isn't it?
That's what makes it fun though. That's what makes it, it's really engaging, isn't it? And you can always kind of work on things and improve them.
Definitely. So your children are quite young at the moment then. Do you have your children full time, or do you have them in
No.
care as well?
Yeah, no. So, and actually, this was a big shift for me. It was very, very hard for me to make the decision to first put my, at the time, 1-year-old into nursery, because I had always felt like, no, they must be at home with me. But then I found very quickly that it was very tiring having him at home all the time.
Yeah.
So my boys go to nursery. So yeah, my big boy goes 3 days a week, and my baby was going 1 day, and now he's just started doing 2 this month. But he absolutely loves it. And you kind of think, oh, is he too young? Because he started nursery when he was 5 months old, and at the time he was the youngest baby in the whole nursery. But actually he loves it there. He gets so much attention. He's a real extrovert, and he gets separation anxiety, but not specifically to me. As long as he's got someone there who's giving him good attention, then he's very happy. So I haven't had any issues with dropping him off at all. And he's getting to that point now at 9 months where he is a bit more clingy, and he really minds if he's not getting things his own way. But because I think we've dealt with the nursery thing at quite a young age, that's not a thing for him to go there. So yeah, I love my kids are in nursery today. I love my Mondays and my Fridays because the house is so wonderfully quiet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, I don't know about you and kind of how you've found that, but I think it's impossible actually to take your business seriously if you have your kids with you all the time, because I cannot really get anything serious done. I can do a little bit of Facebooking when they're not looking, but my 3-year-old doesn't like that. And actually someone said to me in a Facebook group, oh, should we just hop on a video call and just have a quick chat about this? And first of all, he kept sticking his head around the screen going, bye, and making it very obvious that he didn't like it. And then to get my attention, he climbed up on our dining room table, and I looked up and I could just see this 2-year-old reaching for the light fitting. And I was like, get down. And I was just like, actually, he's saying to me, he doesn't like me doing this, while he's around. And so I hope that my kids are very unaware that I actually do work. 3-year-olds are wonderful, aren't they? They have no idea that anyone else is even a person. But I try and keep my work away from my kids, and I try and keep my kids away from my work. I don't use pictures of them on my social media. Sometimes I really want to, and I just think, oh, this picture is so cute, I want to show it to everyone. But I just try and keep them in their own special bubble so that they can have a really unaffected life by the work that I do.
Oh yeah, I had put Eva in nursery at 8 months, and yeah, it was the best thing ever. I actually felt guilty that I'd not put her in sooner because she loved it so much, and she came on so quickly.
Yeah,
and even now at 2.5, she absolutely loves it. So yeah,
well, that's
it was
the
the
thing,
best thing
isn't it?
ever.
We had a long phase with Tom, so he started when he was 1. We had a long phase where he didn't enjoy being dropped off, and he would cry a lot. And worse, they would pick him up and comfort him and say, look, you should just go, because the longer you're here, the worse you'll make it. But then they look you in the eyes and they go, mommy, and you've got to walk out. And I've had moments where you walk back down the road and you're like, gosh, I feel like I'm crying a bit because that was just so intense. But actually they would do that in any situation at that age. That's more about development than it is about the fact they hate nursery. Because then you phone up nursery later on in the morning and say, were they okay? And they were like, do you know what, 20 seconds after you left, they were completely fine. And so I think often these things they're almost for our benefit as the mums, aren't they? And it's expressing that separation anxiety, and it's really healthy for kids to learn to cope with that a little bit. But it can be, for me, it was a very difficult decision, but I haven't looked back. I've absolutely loved having nursery, and it's just like you say, seeing how much they enjoy it, and they've got their little friends there, and they get to do messy stuff that I just think, oh, please don't do painting at home, I can't cope with it.
Yeah, completely there with you, definitely. I brought some craft boxes at Christmas, and I've still been meaning to get them out.
There's time for all of that, isn't there?
Yeah.
Probably when you're about to have a baby is not the best time.
No. Okay, so you touched a little bit on kind of burnout. What advice would you give to someone who's at that point where they just feel completely drained, they don't really know what to do, they are a mum in business, maybe they even do have their kids full time, but they're just trying to juggle everything all at the same time?
Well, I think firstly, know that you're definitely not alone, and I think everyone feels like that at times. A lot of people feel like that a lot of the time, so it's really not uncommon. So yeah, I had burnout 8 years ago, before I even had kids, before I even was an entrepreneur. And I think actually it was awful going through it at the time, but in hindsight, that's given me so much grit for being an entrepreneur. But even then, I think since I started my business, I've got so much better at handling the ups and downs, because there are just so many, aren't there? I don't know, Rebecca, if you've seen, I think Derek Halpin or someone like that did a little graphic a year or two ago, and it said a day in the life of an entrepreneur, and it was literally like up, down, up, down. And that is literally how it feels. You know, one minute you're like, I'm doing this program and it's just so awesome, and then you're like, I've got a launch coming up, and what if it doesn't go very well? And like, oh, I've got loads of subscribers, that's really good. Oh, but no, I've got an unsubscriber, what am I going to do? It's constant. And so know that, like, we just take a lot of body blows all the time as entrepreneurs, and it's imposter syndrome, it's kind of stress, it's balancing a lot of stuff. There's so much going on for all of us that it's completely reasonable to feel just wrung out at times and just like, oh my gosh, I just need to like take a break. And that is the key thing. I find that so often it's easier for me to keep working, or, you know, and I think I'll work in the evening after the kids have gone to bed, but I'll stop at 9 and I will do something relaxing, and then I'll go to bed at 10. I don't go to bed at 10. My husband often has to work in the evenings because of his job, and sometimes he comes back at 10:30, having gone back to work at sort of 7, and I'm still working at 10:30, and I stop at 2 minutes before 11, and then I lie in bed being like, I'm so like churned up about everything that I've been doing. I haven't had any relaxing time at all. And if you keep doing that, like we've had a phase for the last month where our 9-month-old just wants to get up at 5 a.m. And I have just been, I've got a Fitbit, it tells me how much sleep I've had. And sometimes it's been like 4 hours, and you just think, I feel horrendous. And this is why, because I'm making bad choices all the time about stewarding the energy that I do have. So I think the key thing is make good choices that actually get you in that good, energetic place. Because in order to make your business a success, you've got to be the best version of yourself. And I don't know if you found that, Rebecca, but certainly I've learned to find that kind of confident, outgoing, positive person. Like, I'm an introvert. I've been a very pessimistic, skeptical person in the past, and it's very new for me to actually be hopeful. But actually, it's been really exciting being an entrepreneur, because I think it's tapped into that part of me that was always there, but it was kind of almost dormant before. But you always have to try and tap into that mindset that will give you the resilience to try stuff that could fail. Being an entrepreneur is all about putting something out there, getting knocked down, getting no subscribers, getting no sales, and being like, right, what could I have done wrong? And then reevaluating and regrouping and reformulating and coming back with a new plan. So I think, you know, alongside what I was saying before about kind of really evaluate your business and just think, what do I like about this and what do I not like about this? Anytime you're trying to sell anything, just always be aware that this is the first phase. You know, this is the benchmark. This is the, like, what happens if I just put it out there as feels right to me? And then from there, you work backwards and you say, right, let's fix this bit. Let's change the graphics on that. Let's do a better Facebook ad for that. Let's do the copy differently on these emails. It's always about kind of tweaking and changing and improving. So if you're feeling burnt out as an entrepreneur, just don't feel kind of overwhelmed by this. Keep your business really, really simple. So often when things aren't going well and they're not going the way we want, we're not making the sales that we want to make, we make it more complicated. What you actually have to do is make it more simple, because if you're trying to focus on one thing, you will give that one thing your 100% energy. Whereas if you're trying to do 1,000 things, you will do all of them badly. You will not follow through with enough of it to get the results that you want. So that would be my major advice. And so often I think we feel burnt out because we are trying to do Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest and LinkedIn. And there's loads of stuff at the moment, isn't there, about, oh, Facebook usage is down and GDPR, so we can't use our email marketing anymore. And like the Facebook algorithm has changed. What are we going to do? And like that has caused a lot of panic, I think, in the online space. And so I think lots of people at the moment are feeling quite stressed. And what we need to do is just calm down and just focus, you know, do one thing, do it well. That is so much more likely to get results than trying to do all these other things.
Yeah, so true. Okay, so I've got a few more questions for you then before we finish up. Have you got like a resource or something that you use in your business that you recommend to people all the time?
Sure. So I've got a few actually. So the main thing that I am putting out at the moment is a PDF guide called How to Baby Proof Your Business, and that is it's quite a few pages actually, because I wanted it to be almost like a mini ebook. Because if anyone is listening to this and knows that either they're already pregnant, they'd like to get pregnant, they've just had a baby, and they're just like, oh my goodness, what just happened to my life? I just wanted to write like a guide for people in that situation where you just feel completely overwhelmed and you just think, how do I look after a baby? How do I do a business? How do I make this work? Because it feels unworkable. I'm putting in a lot of the stuff that I learnt over the last 3 years of being a really overwhelmed first-time mum, but also the process towards planning for having a second baby and what that would look like in my business, the kind of things to have in place. And it was really interesting actually, because someone emailed back after they'd read that recently, and they said, I really loved what you said about toxic friends, because actually I found myself with loads of toxic mum friends. And you know, it doesn't sound necessarily like something that you'd think straight away, do I have good supportive friends? I think if you've got competitive mum friends who don't like to show weakness and like to boast about who's lost the most weight the quickest and that kind of thing, you can just feel pretty beaten up all of the time. So it's about finding the right kind of friends. I've made some awesome mum friends who are also entrepreneurs, and it's lovely when you can always have like an entrepreneur NCT group where you're all having babies at the same time. And you know, you wouldn't think it would be that supportive as like an online friendship, but actually I think sometimes I've found that better, because NCT friends for me, they were lovely, but we were just so different because they were in the corporate world and I was doing what I do. So just having people who really get it and really understand, that can make such a big difference. So all of that is kind of in the PDF guide. It's called How to Baby Proof Your Business, and there'll be a link to that, won't there, Rebecca, in the show notes and
definitely.
the episodes.
Sounds amazing.
But yeah, if that sounds like kind of thing that you would find helpful, if anyone is listening to this and just thinking like, how do I actually do this, then do download that. Let's start the conversation, because it's got a lot of detail in there, and it's something that is really resonated with people so far. I've been really glad about it. It's always a big risk, isn't it, when you go vulnerable on stuff and you tell people how it really feels. And I was a bit like, oh gosh, I don't want to scare people who haven't had kids and make them feel, you know, completely awful. But I'm very open in the thing. And I say, actually, my first baby, we say even now, he's like a 2-person child. Like, it takes 2 kind of competent adults to look after him, because he's just so full of energy and just so curious. And so you've got to watch him all the time. Otherwise, even now at 3, like, he'll manage to pull a bookshelf on top of himself or something. He's just like that. Whereas my second baby is just so chilled, and I just think he's like a half-person baby, because he's happy all the time. Like, most people I know have never seen him cry. One of my friends was around here at tea time last week, and he was really crying because he was in the high chair and he was tired. And, you know, they get a bit cranky and a bit grumpy. Yeah. And she was like, I don't think I've ever seen you cry. Toby, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, it's the secret Toby. But my experience just with 2 kids, I know some people have got more than 2 and are way more experienced parents than I am. I have not been able to understand how different my 2 boys are. Like, they're like, temperamentally, they are just so different. So I talk about that a lot in the PDF, and just, you know, prepare you for the fact that it could be a really difficult baby that you have.
You're scaring me now.
But equally, it could be a really straightforward thing. And I think for me, a lot of my friends had straightforward babies when I had a challenging child. And so I just felt like, well, why am I struggling so much when, like, everyone else makes this look so easy? But then I had my second baby and I was like, oh, I understand now. It wasn't just me. It was also the personality of the baby.
Oh, well, Eva was she still is so good. So good. I'm just hoping and praying that my second baby will be just as good.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's a complete lottery, isn't it? So, like, there's every chance, it's there in the DNA. So, like, you could have like a second angel, couldn't you? But I don't know. I think I really love my slightly challenging older boy. Like, he is just so interesting and he's so fascinating. Like, he comes out with the funniest things, and he's able to kind of walk and talk and ask questions. And, you know, I came in the other day and he'd taken this like plastic bottle shaker that we'd made at music class, and he found the Hoover attachment and he put it on, and he was going around going, Mommy, it's a spaceship. And I was like, where did you find that? Stop it. But, you know, at the same time, I was like, that is so cute. And so it's never boring with him around, ever, ever, ever.
Oh, bless him. Okay. Do you have a book or a podcast that you'd recommend?
So I have, weirdly, I'm sort of in a phase where I think I consumed so much kind of books, podcasts, free content, everything in the first year and a half of my business, that I'm almost at a point now where it's more important for me to like stop over consuming, and more important to just make my list of priorities for the year and just sit down and get them done. Because I find so much of the time, you think you've got your business plan sorted out, and then suddenly everyone goes, oh, messenger bots, oh, you need a messenger bot, and you can go, oh, what was I doing? Oh, I need a messenger bot. What does that do? I don't even really understand. And so you get really, really distracted. So for me, I'm in a phase actually of my business, and I have been probably for the last year, where it's more important for me to like drown out a lot of that and just be like, I got to focus, because my time is limited, my energy is limited. I moved house 3 times in the last year. And like, you just don't always have time or energy for all the noise that goes on in the online space. But having said that, one of the books that I've enjoyed the most since I became an entrepreneur is You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero.
I love
because that is just, it was so the message that I needed to hear. And for me, being an entrepreneur has been a real journey of kind of self-discovery. And like I said before, tapping into that person that was there all the time, but just that had never had the opportunity to come out through lack of confidence or lack of opportunity. So I really recommend that book. It's really hard to talk about when you're British, because you need to sort of say you are a badass.
Yeah.
You just can't really do that in English, can we, without sounding really stupid. But that for me was a really helpful book. I really enjoyed it.
Super. Okay, so what is the one thing that you'd want to leave our listeners with?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I have discovered through my business, through the last year of, like I said, moving house a ton of times, having another baby, managing all of this all at the same time, and growing my business and making it more profitable at the same time, it's just been do what you know in your heart is right. Because I think I started my business looking for permission all the time and just being like, I've really got to kind of get someone's authority before I can make this decision, because that's normal, isn't it? If you've been in a 9-to-5 job with a boss, you may have been pushing against that boss the entire time and really resented the authority, but at the same time it's a safety net that then isn't there when you're an entrepreneur. So my big thing is always have all the options on the table and always be ready to make the decision that you know is right. So often we know what is the right thing to do, but we think, oh, but that's a risk, and oh, I don't know if I could do that. But it's what your heart tells you sometimes, and that's the thing you've got to listen to.
Yeah, that's so true. I love it. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed the interview today. If you did enjoy it, then please do head over and leave us a review on iTunes and on the Facebook page at Rebecca Lockwood. You can find all the amazing resources to create a business and life with purpose at rebeccalockwood.org.uk/social. And remember that you can make a choice each and every day to show up as the woman that you dream to be. Your time is now. Yes, you can. Have an amazing day, and if you need anything at all from me, head over to the Facebook group and join us, which is the network Her Success Tribe.